If you were a millionaire and were accustomed to a life of abundance, would you dare to start from scratch, completely from scratch, of your own free will? As unbelievable as it may seem, this is what Mike Black decided to do. A millionaire so sure of himself that he decided to part ways with all his possessions and start as a homeless person with the challenge of making $1 million in less than a year. Nothing more and nothing less than during the pandemic. One of the most terrifying moments for many. But who is Mike, and why is he embarking on this journey?
I'm giving up everything. I drained my bank account to $0. I walked away from my 7-figure business. This is the $1 million comeback.
His goal isn't just about making money, it's about proving a point.
Finally, someone nice enough to give me some freaking water.
He believes that privilege is overrated and it's all about mindset. With determination, he set out to make $1 million in just 12 months, starting from scratch. Do you think he's right? Or is it the millionaire's ego talking? Stick around to find out. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, TurboFinance, where we share stories as intriguing as this extreme entrepreneurship experiment. Now, if you're wondering what gear Mike will be taking on this adventure, here's the list.
A cell phone with internet, a cell phone charger, 1 pair of clothes, a bank account that is open with $0 in it. I won't have a place to live. I won't have belongings. I will also have a backpack to carry around camera equipment. So I have to constantly be updating everyone on what's going on, so I need a camera. I'm not allowed to sell anything that I start with, so I can't sell the camera. I won't have a toothbrush, deodorant, I won't have anything. Here's my old towel.
The first thing we all think when we hear about this experiment is how incredibly easy it would be to cheat, right? Even with a zero balance, knowing the right people and having the correct phone numbers, you wouldn't have to start from scratch. That's why Mike, to ensure the experiment, made a series of rules that prevented him from having any kind of help from his millionaire life. By imposing such constraints upon himself, Mike demonstrated not only his commitment to the experiment, but also his unwavering resolve to confront adversity head-on, regardless of the allure of easier paths. In addition to the one you already know, start with a few goods. Those are Mike's rules. Number 2. Cannot use personal resources. Everything owned will be placed in storage, covered by the business. Number 3. Disconnect from friends, family, mentors, and all personal connections for the project's duration. Number 4. He's going undercover, introducing himself as Scott, his middle name, a regular dude who's done time in the restaurant biz and is trying to break into videography. Number 5. No unfair advantages allowed. If anyone susses out Mike's true identity or this project, he has to cut them off. Number 6. Generate revenue solely from activities during the project. Income from any source counts toward the $1 million goal, except revenue from YouTube. Number 7. Cover personal expenses only from the personal bank account that starts with $0. Number 8. No use of credit cards, loans, or any form of debt initially. Number 9. Mike's got to start a brand new business. No freelancing, with his old skills allowed to prevent unfair advantages. And number 10. Every month, $200 comes out of his pocket for phone and health insurance.
All right, the keys are officially turned in. That means starting now, project has started. My network is now cut off. I can't use any of my past connections. I can't use anything. This is official. Now I gotta figure out what the fuck to do.
This challenge isn't easy. The journey begins on day 1 with a small act of kindness. A gallon of water.
Finally, someone nice enough to give me some freaking water. Not worried about food at all. I can go a couple days without eating, but I am worried about water. It's 100 degrees out today.
This simple gesture sparks Mike's confidence and determination. As Mike hits the streets of Austin, feeling the Texas heat bearing down on him, reality hits hard. Starting from scratch isn't the cakewalk he imagined. In fact, it's a rude awakening. Suddenly, without a roof over his head or a safety net to catch him, things get real fast. Out here in the midst of a pandemic, with no possessions to call his own, Mike's grand plan doesn't seem so grand anymore. Day 1 and he's already feeling the pressure. The struggle to find a place to crash for the night is way tougher than he anticipated. And with COVID lurking around every corner, every decision feels like a gamble.
I haven't made any money today.
As the days drag on, Mike's optimism takes a nosedive. It's like a heavyweight match between him and life is winning. The gap between his old life of luxury and his new reality is as wide as the Texas sky. No fancy gadgets or fat bank account to lean on, just him facing the raw, unfiltered truth.
This is not going as planned.
As the sun sets on Mike's first day of his grand experiment, despair sets in. It's been a complete disaster from start to finish. With no home, no money, and no plan, he's like a ship lost at sea. The day started with high hopes, but guess what? It turned out to be a wild goose chase. His attempts to flip some free objects for cash turned out to be futile. The items were too far away. He was running low on juice and time. Well, it just slipped through his fingers like sand. With each passing hour, Mike's hope tanked, replaced by a big ol' sense of defeat. And as the city lights flickered on, reality smacked him square in the face. No bed to crash in, no buddy to lean on, and zilch to show for his hustle. Forced to roll with the punches, Mike's stuck spending the night on Austin's unforgiving streets. It's a harsh reminder that starting from scratch ain't no walk in the park.
Today has been not a great day. This is my bench right here that I'm gonna be sleeping on tonight.
But there was no way he could back out now. Mike had gone public on all his socials, hired a whole production crew, and this wasn't just about him anymore. The whole point of the project was to make a difference in as many lives as possible, so quitting wasn't even in the cards. Then, just when it felt like everything was falling apart, something incredible happened.
Out of nowhere, like, this kid hit me up and said, like, hey man, you can crash here. Offered to drive 30 minutes to pick me up. I'm just really emotional how nice of an act this was. I promise you I will repay you for all of this.
Okay, thank you. I mean, you don't have to, but...
Just thank you so much.
In a surprising turn of events, Mike made a new friend. A makeshift shelter in the form of a camper van, a modest bed, and the luxury of a shower.
The shower.
It's like a total 180 from the tough times he was dealing with just hours ago on the mean streets of Austin. Now the big question pops up, was it luck? Or could we say it was probability, the result of sending messages all day? Perhaps a bit of both. If you want to share your opinion, I'll read you in the comments. This stroke of good fortune gets everyone thinking about what it takes to make it through tough times and bounce back stronger. Mike's journey, once all gloom and doom, now has a glimmer of hope and possibility. The unexpected help he got shines a light on the power of connections and the importance of reaching out, even when things seem darkest.
Hey, so here is the RV campground. This is the RV that I slept in last night. Isaac was nice enough to give me some like bars, so I got to eat. I still have one pair of clothes, which is really gross.
But going from crashing in a borrowed spot in a camper van to making $1 million, that's a massive jump, wouldn't you agree? And as for Mike's initial plan of flipping items or furniture from online giveaway forums, it relied heavily on mobility, which he didn't have. So he decided to try something different, downloading images and details from the free listings and then reselling them at a discounted price on the internet with the condition that the buyer had to handle pickup. After a few attempts, it finally started to work out.
I just sold my first couch for $100.
As we all know, money doesn't stick around for long, especially when it's in short supply. Mike, starting with absolutely nothing, found himself in desperate need of the basics. His journey led him to Walmart, tagging along with his newfound buddy, where he embarked on a much-needed shopping spree for the essentials: clothes, deodorant, and, finally, a decent meal after what felt like an eternity. As he roamed the aisles of the store, Mike felt a mix of relief and disbelief wash over him. Just picking out a fresh shirt and pants felt like a luxury after days spent in the same worn-out attire. With each item tossed into his cart, it was as if a weight was lifted off his shoulders, replaced by a glimmer of hope for brighter days ahead. Surveying the surrounding abundance, Mike couldn't help but marvel at the sheer variety of goods available. It was a far cry from the scarcity he'd grown accustomed to on the streets of Austin. But despite the shelves stacked high with products, a lingering sense of vulnerability still gnawed at him. With his shopping done, Mike emerged from the store laden with bags, not just filled with material possessions, but also carrying a newfound sense of dignity and purpose. It might have been a small victory in the grand scheme of things, but for Mike, it marked a significant step forward in his mission to rebuild his life from scratch. And as he savored his first proper meal in days, a glimmer of optimism stirred within him, whispering of better days to come. As time passes, and he hits the 5th day on his challenge, Mike figures it's about time to upgrade his gear and snag himself a computer.
Hey Mike, what do you got there? That's a nice computer. Oh, you mean this? Oh yeah, that's just a brand new used Chromebook. I'm gonna take that.
He's feeling pretty stoked about this step forward in his journey, but the computer turned out to be a disaster. You know, Mike, some people use the internet to scam others. As he still needed a computer, and realizing he needed a solid setup with reliable internet and a decent workspace, he decided to take the plunge and shell out his last $40 for access to a co-working space. It was really cheap because of COVID, but still a lot for his current budget. It was a gamble, but he saw it as an investment in his future grind. And let me tell you, that move changed the game for him. In his new office space, Mike decides it's time to pivot his strategy and embark on a new venture. He recognizes that if he wants to meet the challenge he's set for himself, he must generate income on a larger scale. However, there's a caveat. His self-imposed rule stipulates that he can't delve into something he's tried before. After some contemplation, he settles on the notion of launching a cleaning business. With COVID-19 heightening concerns about cleanliness, Mike sees this as a potentially lucrative opportunity. Yet, his optimism quickly wanes as he conducts research. To his dismay, he discovers that the cleaning industry is grappling with unprecedented challenges, with revenues plummeting due to the pandemic. Disheartened but undeterred, Mike realizes he must adapt and seek another path forward. He continues to brainstorm ideas, hopeful of finding the perfect fit for his challenge. However, each idea falls short of his expectations, leaving him feeling frustrated and stagnant. As if things couldn't worsen, Isaac's van becomes infested with cockroaches, adding another layer of difficulty to Mike's already challenging situation. It feels like every stride forward is met with 2 steps back, leaving Mike feeling like he's stuck in a loop. While Mike explores various business possibilities, he needs to continue earning money, so he takes on different gigs, from telemarketing to delivery driving using a borrowed car.
Best delivery driver ever.
Despite cutting back on expenses, such as skipping shampoo, his bank account quickly goes into the red. However, he finds a solution to his housing problem by convincing someone to make the initial investment and sign the lease since he can't enter into contracts himself. In exchange, they receive a percentage of the profits. The plan is for Mike to live in one of the rooms and rent out the other 4, with the rental income covering his own expenses. After several failed attempts, Mike decides to give launching a coffee business a shot. The idea seems promising, especially with the rising trend of home delivery, making it a potentially lucrative venture. Plus, for Mike to reach his ambitious goal, he needs a scalable business. However, he quickly hits a snag: the meticulous record-keeping of expenses and the overwhelming task of managing production, marketing, and the team solo.
Bark & Bailey. That is the name of the coffee company that we built. I'm really excited to share it with you all because it's really sucked not sharing things like design changes, all this stuff, but here it is.
As the business grows, production costs soar, and the expenses for production and marketing far surpass the income generated. This forces him to take on extra gigs just to cover the team's expenses, tightening his belt to the point where some days he can't even afford a meal. With so much time dedicated to other endeavors, there's barely any left for his coffee business. He realizes that devoting just an hour won't cut it. Despite pouring in countless hours, returns are dismal, barely scraping minimum wage. He can practically taste the disappointment, feeling inadequate.
I'm barely even spending time on the business. I'm doing so much other shit.
The pressure mounts when Mike's main client for one of his side gigs ends their contract, prompting him to reassess his strategy and get smarter with his time and money. Tough decisions loom ahead, like whether to cut expenses to boost the e-commerce platform's launch or invest more in resources, such as hiring freelancers to spruce up the homepage. Despite the hurdles, Mike remains determined to push forward, knowing that success often involves taking calculated risks and making strategic investments. After launching his coffee brand, revenue finally starts picking up, reaching $64,000. Could this be the breakthrough he needed to inch closer to his goal? Just when things seem to be looking up, Mike receives devastating news. He's diagnosed with a tumor in his hip. Despite this setback, Mike soldiers on, determined to keep his project going. But managing his health issues alongside the demands of the project becomes increasingly challenging. On top of that, he's grappling with 2 autoimmune diseases that demand his attention and care. As if that weren't enough, Mike learns of his father's failing health. With his dad's condition worsening, Mike feels an urgent need to spend more time with him before it's too late. The impending loss weighs heavily on him, adding another layer of complexity to an already tough situation. Faced with these challenges, Mike finds himself at a crossroads. Despite his unwavering commitment to the project, he realizes that his health and family take precedence. In the end, he decides to suspend the experiment, understanding that his well-being and family relationships cannot be sacrificed for an experiment. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to receive more interesting and inspiring stories like this one. In the end, Mike may not have reached his $1 million milestone, but he's achieved to inspire countless others to chase their dreams, and for that, he'll always be a winner in our eyes. So here's to Mike, a true leader in every sense of the word. Thank you for watching. See you in upcoming videos here on TurboFinance.